If you look at the bottom of the scariest horror movie iceberg, there are almost exclusively movies that feel like they could happen to you in real life. According to that standard, Woman of the Hour is one of the scariest horror movies I have ever seen. It sparked controversy in living rooms all over the world because for some men this was not realistic and they could not understand the absolute horror in their partner's face after watching that parking lot scene. Welcome to First Time Watching. Please like and subscribe as we jump straight into the explanation. Wyoming, 1977. A charming young man is taking pictures of a beautiful young woman while she tells him about her ex-boyfriend who left when she got pregnant. The guy closes in on her and starts to touch her neck, then slowly takes her in a chokehold. He pushes her to the ground and squeezes every last breath out of her. Then he performs CPR to revive her and does it again. Hollywood, 1978. Sheryl is auditioning for a part in a movie, but the casting directors are rude and discuss how much they do not like her in front of her face. Then they ask her if she is down to do a birthday suit shoot, and when she answers no, the audition is done. She is on her way home and sees Terry talking to somebody next to the door of her apartment. She would have rather avoided the guy, but it does not look like he would understand a social cue if it smacked him in the face. He just randomly follows her into her apartment as she picks up the ringing phone. It's her manager to bring her the bad news that she didn't get the part. Sheryl interrupts her to say that she has been working very hard and accomplishing very little. She can't even afford her rent. The manager tells her the great news because she got booked on a TV show. She asks what the show is. It is a very stupid dating show where they love women that look dumb and act like they can't take care of themselves. Exactly the thing Sheryl despises. After finding out the concept of the TV show, she needs a drink, and since Terry still hasn't figured out that Sheryl is not interested, and he is trying to see how long he can invade her personal space without her head blowing off, he tags along. Now Terry speaks as a true friend zone inhabitant and convinces Sheryl to do the show because she'll meet some sappy guy, dump him after the show, and be right back with him sitting and drinking with some more money in her pocket. Sheryl once more emphasizes that he is her only friend and she does not want to date anybody, but Terry still makes a pass at her. She rejects him, but tries to play it off as her just having a weird day. Now Terry acts all pissy and annoyed, so she gives in out of fear of what he might do and hopes that sleeping with him will get him off her back. San Gabriel, 1979. A young homeless girl steals chocolates at the laundromat for food and then steals money from the machines. She hides out under some stairs when a random guy intrudes by taking her picture. He spews out some stupid excuses like the light was perfect and you are beautiful. Like that gives him any right to take her picture without consent. But these were the 70s and consent wasn't really a thing back then. He asks her if she would like to be a model for a photo contest that he would like to enter. He takes some more pictures of her and throws some compliments her way to charm her into his car. Back in Hollywood, 78, Sheryl arrives at the studio. She is ready for her big break through this sleazy dating show. While in makeup, she meets the show's host, a proper douche. He advises her to follow the creepy questions on the flashcards and to act stupid because guys are easily intimidated by intellect. Outside, the audience arrives for the live broadcast, so the dating game starts. The host does his sleazy little intro as he introduces tonight's lovely bachelorette. New York City, 1971. A woman in the process of moving into her new apartment spills paint all over herself, but while she is in the shower, she does not hear the doorbell. It was the moving company she hired to move her stuff, and they got tired of waiting, so they threw all her second-hand vintage crap out on the curb. She spots a guy across the street taking pictures, so she charms him into helping her carry her stuff upstairs. She thanks him with a beer and a nice conversation, until he mentions that this is his last day in town, and then he meets her. It's so hard to meet people when you are new in town, but when he does, he likes to savor the moment. Instant ick, red flag, alarm bells, and she starts to clean, thanks him, and hopes to get him out of her apartment ASAP. But it's too late. He attacks, chokes her, and takes her picture. Back to 1978. Sheryl walks out on stage, and while the host introduces her, the bachelors also take their seats. They introduce themselves, but I have a feeling we have seen bachelor number 3 before. It's the guy who is way too invested in choking girls instead of treating them respectfully. One of the audience members recognizes him and starts to have a panic attack. Sheryl reads the first question from her flashcard, and it's some stupid, generic question designed to make the guy feel good about himself. And even those questions prove to be too difficult for Bachelor 1 and 2. Number 3 does his best to come across as charming as possible and has actual witty answers. Meanwhile, the audience member with the panic attack makes her way towards the exit and accidentally demolishes one of the cameras when she trips over a cable. They take an early break, but during that break, Sheryl already gets a slight feeling something has to be wrong. In 1977, Bachelor number 3 is working at the LA Times. His name is Rodney, and he loves to show off his work to other colleagues who are obsessed with the amount of success he has with the ladies. Except for one guy who just gets an overall bad vibe from the guy. Rodney's boss comes to get him because the police is asking for him. He is even able to charm the police officers to the point that they believe it is all a big misunderstanding. But it does get to him. He feels the suffocating grasp of the law closing in on him. Back in 78, it is revealed that the girl with the panic attack's friend was killed by Rodney. She found her dead in a hotel room, and creepy Rodney was the last person she ever saw her with. The makeup lady walks up to Sheryl and wants to shake shit up. She notices that Sheryl is not comfortable with the questions she has to ask, so her advice is to screw those questions and put some real heat under their jeans. Backstage, Bachelor 2 and Rodney have a nice little conversation. 2 makes a remark about the cup size of the girl that brings them a drink, and Rodney asks what he will do if Sheryl does not have his preferred cup size. He answers that he will just let her blow him, but Rodney tells him no, he won't be able to, because Rodney always gets the girl. The girl with the panic attack's boyfriend catches up to her and asks her if she's okay. She tells him about Rodney, that he killed her friend Allison, but the boyfriend doesn't believe that that is the guy, and he kind of tries to gaslight her into letting it go. So she tells him to get out of the car. The break is over, and Sheryl is excited to turn up the heat. Her questions are not only increasingly more difficult, but also designed to make them screw up and lead the bachelors into a trap to reveal their true intentions. So, Sheryl asks Rodney the difference between a boy and a man, and he answers that the difference is that a boy believes that if he takes you out to dinner, that you owe him something in return, and a man knows better not to talk about dessert before he makes it through dinner. Her next question to number 1 is, what are girls for? His amazingly thought through answer is, for guys and to have fun. Same question for number 2, and he answers that the question feels like a trap, because if he says whining and dining, he seems like a jerk, and if he says to respect, he sounds like a schmuck, and she quickly takes away his ability to answer that question further. So on to number 3, and his answer is, well, that's up to the girl. Meanwhile, Panic Girl makes her way to the security guard and tells him that last year her friend was sexually abused and murdered, and the police never found who did it, but she believes that the guy who did it is a guest on one of their shows at this very moment. Back to Sheryl. Her next question is for number 3 only. She asks him what the most disgusting thing is Bachelor 1 and 2 have said about her backstage, and he chooses the honest approach. Number 1 did not say a lot, but he tells Sheryl that number 2 was of the opinion that bra size matters in a meaningful relationship. The host stops the game right there. He cannot let this go on any longer because women were having too much fun. The makeup lady approaches Sheryl and asks her who she will pick, but Sheryl asks if she went too far. The makeup lady tells her she has been working on this set for 10 years, and she has seen a lot of girls come and go, and they all ask the same questions to find out one answer. Which one of you won't hurt me? Sheryl just asked it clearer than most. Backstage, number 2 confronts Rodney. He taunts him and tells him he will kick his ass after the show. Rodney tells him they can exchange address so that it's easier to find each other, but instead of his information, he hands him a picture of one of his victims. Number 2 freaks out and calls him a weirdo. Break time. time's over and it's time to make a decision. Sheryl picks number 3 because he knew what girls are for. She gets to meet number 1 and 2 on their way out, and as 2 walks up to her, he whispers into Sheryl's ear that she should be careful with the guy she picked. And now, the host introduces bachelor number 3. He is into driving a motorcycle and skydiving, and he is also a great photographer, Rodney Alcala. They meet each other, and he chooses some pretty intimate hand placement for a first meet. The show is over, and they are separated. In the security office, Panic Girl feels like she is being stood up and not taken seriously. The security officer told her to wait for a George Eliot, and it turns out that that is the janitor, so she gets out of there. As Sheryl is being ushered out of the studio, she finds herself on the parking lot where Rodney is waiting for her. They talk about their overall experience. Rodney asks her if she would like to join him for a drink, and flash forward to San Gabriel, 1979. The homeless girl is now in Rodney's car, and she looks through his photo album, and just when the pictures start to get a little more shady, he closes the album and asks her where she's from. But she does not like that question and deflects. They stop at a remote place in the desert, and they walk up to the perfect spot where Rodney is sure nobody will find them. He gets her there by telling her that you can make beautiful pictures at this spot. He makes her turn around, and when he doesn't answer her anymore, he tackles her. In 1978, at the bar, Rodney says all the right things to make Sheryl weak in the knees, until he tries to say something a little spiritual, and Sheryl turns it into a joke. Rodney loses his temper and is visibly more annoyed than somebody normally would be. The conversation falls silent, and Sheryl tries to take the awkwardness out of the conversation. She tells him that she was on the show to maybe make a name for herself. That's when Rodney asks her if she felt seen, because most people do not like to be seen, because for that, you have to like yourself. Rodney asks the waitress if they can have another drink, but Sheryl nods to her to not bring over any more drinks. So the waitress apologizes to Rodney, but they are closing. Sheryl gets up and ready to leave the bar. Rodney offers her a walk back to her car. Then he asks her for her phone number. She writes her number down on a piece of paper as he takes a strand of her hair and puts it behind her ear. They walk back to the parking lot where it's a lot more secluded. She tells Rodney goodnight, but he asks her one last question: if she could repeat her number, just to make sure he has the right one. Sheryl did not give him her real number, and now he knows for sure she sees who he truly is. Sheryl starts to walk towards her car when she hears Rodney mumble under his breath, "Next time you'll get your head bashed in." She asks him what he said, and he just smiles. So she starts walking towards her car, faster and faster as he starts to follow her from a distance. He comes closer and closer, so Sheryl quickly runs towards her car as he stops her from getting in. She tells him to get his friggin' hand from her car as a door nearby opens and a few men leave the building. They look at the guys. Rodney strokes her face and walks away. On the car ride home, Sheryl knows she just escaped a life-threatening situation. A little later, Panic Girl, also known as Lauren, is done teaching a class when her boyfriend is waiting for her and apologizes to her. He takes her to the police office to finally report the crimes done by Rodney. But like many times before, and many more times to come, the police does not do their jobs, and they do not listen when a serial killer is handed to them on a silver platter. Sheryl is absolutely done with Hollywood. She tells her manager she is leaving as she packs her stuff. She gives Terry the stink eye on her way out. Flash forward to 1979. The young homeless girl has just been violently attacked and sexually abused over and over again. Her hands are bound, and Rodney is next to her, crying his eyes out. The girl turns to him, puts on her best smile, and asks him if he's okay. She tells him it got pretty crazy last night, and she asks him for a favor, if he could please not tell anybody what happened between them, because she would be so embarrassed if anybody would find out. Rodney agrees to her request, and she asks him if they can go back to his place. He tells her yes. Then she asks him to untie her and compliments his knot-tying skills. They walk back to his car together and get in. In the car, Rodney apologizes for being rough with her, but she tells him it's all okay. They drive off, and Rodney makes a quick stop at the gas station. He has to take a leak. She tells him she'll wait in the car, but as soon as Rodney's around the corner, she sprints towards the nearby diner. And when Rodney gets back to his his car and notices she is gone. The police is already on the scene. They immediately arrest the sick bastard. As the girl watches the arrest from a distance. This is a true story, and Rodney Alcala was only ever convicted for the murder of 7 women. But authorities estimate the true number of victims to be close to 130. Rodney Alcala never left prison after that, and eventually passed away while incarcerated. Woman of the Hour is a much-needed reality check, and you would never guess that this is Anna Kendrick's directorial debut, especially when goosebumps run from your arms to the back of your neck. I found the movie almost difficult to watch, because films like this, combined with reactions on platforms like TikTok, where some men fail to recognize what behavior is wrong, always fuel my distrust in my gender and make me fearful for my daughter's future. But that is precisely why this movie is so incredibly important. It brings awareness to a subject that many prefer not to discuss. For me, personally, this film will linger in my mind for a long time to come.